The Trump administration is poking the bear again in Judge Xinis. Now telling her, you can't find us in contempt. You don't even have jurisdiction because we brought Abrego Garcia back. Judge, you told us to bring him back. Sure, it was 2 months late. Sure, we told you to go pound sand. We taunted you and said we'd never return him. But we indicted him in Tennessee. We brought him back for a manufactured indictment about human trafficking. All better now? And you don't have jurisdiction to go after us for contempt any longer. So drop it. And the motion is in hand. The depravity, the mind-boggling depravity of the legal arguments raised by the Trump administration knows no boundaries. We have boundaries. We're here together on Legal AF. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button as I give you the breakdown of the new motion, and I tell you what's going to happen with it. How did we get here? Well, Donald Trump's administration finally got around, after being threatened with contempt, to bring in Abrego Garcia back to the U.S. They had been ordered to do so by the United States Supreme Court on April the 10th. But they didn't bring him back to Maryland. They didn't bring him back to allow him to vindicate and litigate his habeas corpus, his due process Fifth Amendment rights that had been taken away from him when he was dumped off in an El Salvadorian supermax killer prison. No. They brought him back after telling the Supreme Court they didn't have the power to do it, telling Judge Xinis she didn't have the power to order it, after they got an indictment in Tennessee on an old traffic stop, not making this up, from 2 years ago. They finally got around on April 28th to indicting him, then bringing him out of El Salvador. See, they had told the judge they had no power to bring anybody out of El Salvador. It was a sovereign country. What are they to do? They dumped him off in the middle of the night, but they didn't keep a receipt. Now, by bringing him back to stand charges for what they wanted him to stand charges for on this phony, trumped-up indictment, then they could look the judge in the eye and say, see, we did bring it back. You have no more jurisdiction. The jurisdiction that Judge Xinis has to do with the prior civil rights, constitutional rights violations of the Trump administration when they sent him in the middle of the night without due process, without notice, to El Salvador, a country that he had an order from a federal immigration judge that prevented him from being sent to El Salvador because his life was at risk. That was all admitted. That's all part of the record. Even the Supreme Court said it was an illegal removal over an order, violating of an order. And now they're saying, well, Judge, you don't have any more jurisdiction. We fixed the problem. We brought him back on our own terms. But they had the balls to tell the judge the following on page 1. Plaintiffs have now received the relief they sought in the complaint because defendants have taken extraordinary steps and have facilitated and indeed effectuated Abrego Garcia's return to the United States. Therefore, the court lacks subject matter jurisdiction. They later even say that they have done exactly that. Listen to the cojones on the Trump administration. On page 3, they say on June 6, 2025, defendants successfully facilitated Abrego Garcia's return to the United States in compliance with the court's order. That was in compliance with the court's order? What happened to all the taunting? You'll never see him. Pam Bondi, he's never coming back. Social media posts from the White House press corps, White House press office on social media. He's never coming back. Press conference with El Salvador's dictator leader, Bukele, in the White House. I'm never bringing him back. Filings in all the courts. We don't have the power to bring him back. What happened to that? Suddenly they got the power. They were able to bring him back. They were able to facilitate after they spent 3 months jerking around with what the definition of facilitate meant. It took 2 Fourth Circuit Courts of Appeal rulings, 1 United States Supreme Court ruling, in order to get them to what? To bring him back to Maryland? To bring him back to Tennessee to stand charges for something that happened 2.5, 3 years ago during a traffic stop where he wasn't even given a citation, not even for a suspended license or no insurance, based on a confidential informant, get this, who has had 2 felony convictions, has been deported 5 times, and desperately wants to stay in the United States. And they got information from him and where he rolled over on Abrego Garcia to stay in the States. Oh, I can't believe it. That's unbelievable. A confidential informant lying to protect his own hide? It's never happened. So what's the judge going to do with this motion? because it's worth about the paper it's written on, less. Here, what's pending with the judge is a motion for discovery sanctions filed about a week and a half ago, in which the other side asked for sanctions in advance of asking for more sanctions. Let me explain. The first round of sanctions is to have the fact that the government refused to participate, play nicely in the sandbox about discovery, which is the providing of documents and information, sworn testimony from the government to Abrego Garcia's lawyers in this case. It's a two-way street, but it's really about their providing documents through discovery to Abrego Garcia. They never did any. They produced like 3 pieces of paper. None of the deponents, which are the people being deposed under oath, sworn testimony, none of them knew anything, didn't want to tell her anything, asserted privilege not to tell the judge anything. So after 2 months of discovery, nothing came out of it because the Trump administration basically told the judge to pound sand in her process. Now the motion for sanctions for discovery abuses tells the judge, all right, just assume they didn't produce things because it was negative and adverse to them. So make an adverse inference against the Trump administration and make a finding that they didn't facilitate. They refused to acknowledge your order. They refused to acknowledge your jurisdiction, which they now attack. And let's make all those assumptions, which will support our motion for contempt sanctions. I think she's going to rule in their favor on that. Trump administration, in the meantime, is trying to delay. They just got a 1-week delay from Judge Xinis, but she told them that's it. You have until next week to file your opposition to the motion for discovery sanctions, and then I'm ruling. They try again. They're like that child that keeps asking for the extra cookie, and the parent keeps telling them no, and they're about to get locked in their room for the rest of the night. So this motion says, Judge, you don't even have jurisdiction. Why are we here? By us bringing home Abrego Garcia to Tennessee, he lives in Maryland, to stand charges where he's being detained in a Tennessee detention center. That's it. That's what they wanted. That's not what the suit is about. The suit is about, yes, from a provisional remedy, bringing him back from El Salvador. But that's only one link in the chain. It's also a case about constitutional violations, due process violations, and the damages and the equity that the judge can impose on the Trump administration as a result, and whether they're in contempt for the several months they didn't do a darn thing to bring back Abrego Garcia. See, bringing him back for their purposes for the indictment doesn't solve the contempt problem for Trump and the administration and the Department of Justice. It proves it. And I'm sure the judge will feel the same way. She hasn't lost jurisdiction. There's still a pending case. There's still pending issues about how it happened, why isn't it a due process violation? Even a day, even an hour of being held in an El Salvador prison in violation of your due process rights gives rise to injury, cognizable injury that needs to be redressed in a courtroom in front of Judge Xinis, who's been empowered by a 9-0 decision of the United States Supreme Court. So we're going to follow what happens. She's going to allow the other side, the Trump side, the Abrego Garcia side to oppose this motion. She's going to give him, a few days, maybe a week. And then she's going to rule. She's going to deny the motion. She's going to declare that she has jurisdiction. She's going to grant the motion for discovery sanctions eventually. She's going to make adverse inferences against the Trump administration. And then she's going to rule against them on contempt. And somewhere along the way, Trump's going to try to go to the D.C. Court of Appeals. And if that doesn't work for him, some sort of straight shot to the United States Supreme Court, where he's had a winning hand lately on various cases. We've had the Doge case and Social Security go his way at the United States Supreme Court. We just had a new decision I'll be doing a hot take on later about the Supreme Court's perverse 6-3 decision against transgender youth and transgender people in general, finding they don't have equal protection rights to be transgender. I will break that down for you in a separate hot take. But I'm glad you're here on Legal AF. We need you to be part of our movement. If you're here already, hit the subscribe button. Come on over to Legal AF, the Substack, where you'll get a copy of this very motion under Legal AF or under Filings AF. I think you're going to love the Legal AF Substack and work we're doing over there. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok.
I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.